Free humankind. It's in blue. Tesla's thoughts. Free humankind from the burdens of extracting, pumping, transporting, and burning fossil fuels, as he saw as sinful waste. But J.P. Morgan saw it as gold on the streets. That's the kind of world we had access to, and this is where the fight began for it. In the early 1900s. They're yapping today about stop the 1.5 sea rise, you got to limit, you got to eat bugs. Well, wait a second, you stole 100 plus years from us. We could have been back there already, and now we don't even get this tech. They want to run us to the garbage solar panels and a bunch of waste and e-waste and rare earth minerals and just junk that's going to pollute the planet instead of going for what we really need is magnetic motors. It's actually, there was a term for it, fuel-less generators. And welcome back for the second segment here, Many Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine, every other Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. right here on TV, uncensored. Now, before the break, I was talking about the creature from Jekyll Island, the secret meetings on Jekyll Island for the formation of the Federal Reserve. And those opposed to it happened to be on the Titanic when it sank in 1912. After the ratification and formation of the Federal Reserve, World War I starts just a year later. Unlimited money printing at that point. That was the first actual inflation to be seen was the conflict. So from 1913 to 1918, the dollars at that time saw their first 5% reduction in value through the inflation of printing for the war effort. Again, America had to get lured in with Lusitania in World War I. Can't keep their fingers off the buttons on these things, can they? So this book right here, The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. Excellent. You must read it. Super thick book. Now, he's been out speaking recently, and if you go to Stansberry Research with Daniela Cambone, he did an excellent interview there. Since he understood the formation of the Federal Reserve, he's quite attuned into what's happening with the new central bank digital currencies and the very easy parallels to see between this. His words, not mine. The same people that interfere with the rollouts of the central bank digital currency will be eliminated. It's way easier to do today. Things happen, strange accidents, and anybody that's opposed to CBDC rollouts in countries or wanting to leapfrog disruptive technologies ahead of what they're supposed to roll out with the narratives of solar panels and windmills, if they want to jump ahead of that, well, that's not good either. So it seems if you have a lot of money and you're in the industry, you're kind of locked in. You can't go into the future because a lot of these people who have money are futurists that see it, and they just have to kind of, bite their tongue and stay back in the old, like I say, square cave world that we're living in. But what's so interesting, this is, when you talk about the Astors and the Strauss and the Guggenheims and these types of moneyed families, Morgans, et cetera, during that time, this is Fifth Avenue here, the row, the jaded mansions. Now, New York City with this many mansions in it, interesting. And then the wireless power connectors, what you would consider gates on the tops of the homes, that's all disappeared now. I mean, some of these structures are still there. But, the further you step back in time, it gets a little murky too. I think Tesla, had a bunch of his own inventions, but I think that he was also pulling something that was even further back in the past that's just been refound. Because you have to consider this, just a quick FYI, if you didn't know, the Romans were using compressed air energy technologies, compressed air, where they knew the force of the air could actually spin something. They were using that back in the Roman era. And then there was a complete blackout until about 1750, and then we found compressed air technologies again in France. And we started using that. Pneumatics, think anything, pneumatic drills, pneumatic tools. Bloomberg is warning of a severe economic reset, and gold appears as the caged bull awaiting a catalyst. J.P. Morgan warned, cut stocks, buy gold, and hold your cash. Wells Fargo said gold is in a super cycle that could last another 6 years. And worst case scenario, gold at 3,000. It's as simple as calling Patriot Gold Group today. Find out why they're A+ rated, Consumer Affairs top rated gold and silver company nationwide. Patriot Gold Group offers the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver on qualifying rollovers. 888-546-7020. Call to get your free investor guide today. And now on with the video. Anything pneumatic was compressed air. Now, why is it that it was around in the Roman era until, let's say I'll even give it 500 AD, and then it disappeared completely until 750 AD? Like, why is that gap there? Did nobody jump ahead in technologies, or were we reset naturally in cyclical cataclysms that took a while for humanity to reemerge, is the question. Like, where did all these mansions come from? Some asked. But speaking about banking, this is another thing here. This is the first bank in the United States ever. Left side is the lithograph, and you notice those really convenient, well-built wooden buildings right next door to it, sharing a wall. Gilded Age, I thought they would be all like this. Shouldn't every building be the same if they had the same technologies to build everything? And then we came to take a look at it close up today with better photography, and look at that Gothic, or I should say Roman Greek architecture. And that was supposedly the first bank built right next to all the pig slop and the mud streets and the brick buildings right next to it, and the things are made out of wood. Same neighborhood. Cheap neighbors, bro. What are you thinking? So anyway, that's the story. That's the story we're given. So again, I want to jump back into some strangeness here. Now, Nikola Tesla, if you don't know, is the grandfather and the leading figure of wireless technologies, magnetic motors, and almost every electrical device that is in your home or you've ever seen or touched it has Nikola Tesla technologies and fingerprints all over it. You might think about Edison with the light bulb, but he was put in place to bring out more infrastructure in the current system during the current wars, alternating current, direct current. The more infrastructure you could put out, the more money was needed for mining, and the more raw materials were needed for that infrastructure build out for that new system for electrification. See, Tesla wasn't playing the game either. He's like, we don't need that. Nor was Westinghouse. Start to hear these names in history, and when you glue them together, it's like a little interesting. So Nikola Tesla to the left, Tesla coils, experimentation with using the Paleozoic electrical influences of our crust, along with the ether and the microvolt charge above the crust, and you could recycle that charge, direct it in a certain direction. If you had rods in the earth every so often, that would connect underground and you could recircle it in the air. That's what wireless power was all about. And this is back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So why haven't we experimented with that? And we're back at solar panels digging through the ground again. So John Jacob Astor, Astor Hotel, Nikola Tesla turns up there after he got funded from J.P. Morgan and says, hey, Mr. Astor, I need a place to stay. And he takes him under his wing, starts to learn about all these technologies. He's like, I wonder if we could power our hotel with this. Wink, wink. And they did. They did for a while. So anyway, Astor's onto this, funds Tesla to continue with his research over at Wycliffe Tower, because J.P. Morgan pulled the funding. And here's why. It might become a threat to other industrial concerns that he was already committed to at the time. And this is J.P. Morgan. So the mining, the extraction of and production of chemicals, extraction of oils, leading into chemical production, copper cabling, like I say, the mining interest, J.P. Morgan was everywhere. So you think about a world that we would not have ever had one copper cable above our heads ever, and we could have drawn power and created it on demand in our homes in a little small unit half the size of my desk. If we would have started from that point instead of where we are today, I'm sure we would have touched into electrogravitics in weightless travel at some point closely right thereafter, which they were already into. Marconi was as well. Marconi, the radio, the first S. So JP Morgan said, Marconi, he already broadcast the first S. Your Wycliffe Tower, I thought it was going to be a radio broadcast system. And Tesla says it never was intended to that. It was intended for a free power distribution system so nobody would ever have to pay for power. And Morgan was like, whoa, we can't have anything for free, hence becoming a threat to the other industrial concerns. Because, I mean, if you're in the very beginning of wiring out America and say circa 1913 or 1914, how much money do you see in front of you? Timber interest, So Tesla's plan to provide wireless power, and the funding was cut off. Okay, we understand that. No heartfelt request, absolutely zero money. And then Astra says, yes, I'll give you money. I'll buy 500 shares of your company and continue to fund you while you do this research. Oh, by the way, I got to take a trip on this boat called the Titanic. Hold on. Not coming back. So the best way to describe it is, in the air, there's a constant charge around us. And if you look into electroculture, where you wrap your plants with copper cables or copper wiring, it pulls from that millivolt charge out of the ether and then electrifies your plants and gives them extra, literally, growth energy from the ether. Well, if you look there in the very first paragraph, the fluid electrical charges running beneath the Earth's surface is otherwise termed as Paleozoic currents. It's currents that run through rock and water. So the pyramids, Egypt, there's water under those. There's a system of rivers under the pyramids. Now also, the granite that's used in there has a high silica concentrate, but if you know about chips, it's refined silica. So then you start to put these together and go, all right, well, some rocks, as in just granite, can transmit electricity. How about vast mining areas around the Great Lakes of iron ore in the rock? That can transmit electricity. How about huge bauxite reserves, aluminum? That can. How about the silver reserve? That can too. Gold reserves, that can do it too. So everywhere you look around the planet, there's many a mineral that can carry a current. And then combined with water, you have yourself an electrical circuit system. And that's what he was tapping into, literally. No pun intended. It really was. Putting different rods in the earth on a directional flow where they knew the current was, and taking that underground in a looping system. And that's what Wycliffe Tower was the recirculation point to push it back down into the earth. Because Wycliffe Tower was directly over an aquifer that they dug down into to get that initial seeding point to send out the current and then reloop it back. Free humankind. It's in blue. Tesla's thoughts. Free humankind from the burdens of extracting, pumping, transporting, and burning fossil fuels, as he saw as sinful waste. But J.P. Morgan saw it as gold on the streets. That's the kind of world we had access to, and this is where the fight began for it. In the early 1900s. They're yapping today about stop the 1.5 sea rise, you got to limit, you got to eat bugs. Well, wait a second, you stole 100 plus years from us. We could have been back there already, and now we don't even get this tech. They want to run us to the garbage solar panels and a bunch of waste and e-waste and rare earth minerals and just junk that's going to pollute the planet, instead of going for what we really need is magnetic motors. It's actually, there was a term for it, fuel-less generators. And as soon as J.P. Morgan heard fuel-less generators and all of his friends out in the investment community, they're like, you need to crush that dude like an insect. Remove all funding. That dude doesn't take another single step forward with technology or advances or invention because he wants to give away free power and he has the full capability to do it. We can't let him get any prototype models up and running. But then he teamed up with Westinghouse, and oh, what did they do? So here's Wycliffe Tower, and if you look at the possibilities of what it was very similar to something like this, tapping into the ether. And when you see different color spectrum, that's just different voltage charges that's coming through the atmosphere. Why do you think lightning's different colors sometimes? Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's white, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's purple. That's all because as it's cracking through with a different voltage through the substrate in the air, it's getting glowing plasma and it resonates at different frequencies depending on the voltage input into it. No different. 1917, federal government demolished that. Oh, wait, I thought it was a private residence. Now, how did they go? Oh, they thought it was German spies using it. Can you believe that? That was really the excuse given. The patent for it right here, Tesla magnifying apparatus for transmitting electrical energy. That's patent 1,119,732 in the U.S. Patent Office. Now, there's a huge amount of patents out there right now. So if you want to go through and look at the system for electrical distribution wirelessly, that was patented in when? Let me see. Can I read that? Do I need my reading glasses? 1888. 1888. We're talking way back. And they're trying to feed us solar panels and windmills when we had wireless technologies in 1888. By the way, the first cars were not combustion motors. The first cars were electric vehicles in 1880s also. So again, whether it would be compressed air technologies removed from human view from the Roman era to 1750, and then it popped back up again. Battery technologies were removed from human view in the 1880s and then suddenly popped back up again, what, 20 years ago? Like there's these substantial amounts of technology removed from the human domain and put back in at certain times. Speaking of the White Cliff Tower, this is Texas in 2019. They've been experimenting. This is a military facility. They're using the same exact technologies again. Again, it was removed because it was going to cause too much disruption in the economy. And now we start to see it pop back up again for usage in military, industrial uses there. They call it the War of the Currents. The War of the Currents. See, there was an alternating system, alternating current or a direct current. And Edison and Tesla were battling for it, inventing different lighting systems for it, the twist-in light bulb, the screw-in light bulb. And you just go back and you say, really, the beginning of the electrical current wars was beginning in the 1880s. Now, there was no clear victor of which system was going to be the one that would be rolled out across the planet. Well, we see now that DC is rolled out over in Europe and AC systems here in the United States and North America. So the beginning of that, Nikola Tesla invents an entirely new electrical system for plug-in and then powers the World's Fair. Then he jumps into, years later, into this wireless technologies, and he's holding these light bulbs in his hand and they're just powered from the ether. That's scary for a lot of magnates that were counting on mining billions to come in. And you know, this is the World's Fair here in 1893, and now this is in Chicago, if you can believe it. And then apparently after the World's Fair, they needed to destroy all these buildings because they just weren't good enough to leave there as like offices or museums or anything. So what you're seeing here is actual representation, really what was built out for the World's Fair in 1893. And here, Nikola Tesla, one of my favorite people in history. You know, this wireless technology is still here for us, but you as an inventor would need to go off and develop your own because there's no commercial place that you can buy these technologies. The patents are out there. You're just going to have to build your own and be super careful about it. Be careful. You can't commercialize it. You can never even talk about it. You don't do it in presentations. Don't talk about it. Don't mention it. Don't show your coupling systems. Just use it. That's still where we sit today. So when you have a billionaire out in Pakistan says, hey, let's just dust off some of these patents and roll them through the hills of Pakistan, what do you think the world magnates of today do you think are going to do? If they had that much power back in the 1880s, 1900s, 1913, form the Federal Reserve, start world wars, how far do you think it's come in the last 120 years of power grab and consolidation and allegiance to the dark powers? Nikola Tesla, these patents here, 1889, patent number 405,858, electric magnetic motor, meaning using the Earth's magnetic field. And then we have patent number 382,279, patent in 1888, a different type of magnetic motor. All right, so how does this work here? Shahzada Dawood spoke at the World Economic Forum, and the main involvement was for improving livelihoods of women, girls, and was how much opposed to the central bank digital currency rollout is still an unknown. You know, I've been digging down through a lot of articles. I'm trying to call some reporters over in Pakistan and ask. It's an unknown how much pushback there really was against the CBDC from their end of their consortium of companies vocally against it. Parendev magnetic motors, what is being rolled out or was planned to be rolled out in Pakistan, right here on your screen. I have the patents for you below, which I'll get to in just a second. So they're called Parendev magnetic motors, and what you need is neodymium magnets. The schematics is basically two wheels that roll inside of each other. So think of it when you were a kid in school and you had the two magnets on the desk and you pushed one, and if it was of the same polarity, it would push itself apart. And you could never get them to connect, and if you try to squeeze them, they always bounced apart. Remember those days back when it was fun when we were kids? just scale it up to neodymium magnets and then get that magnetic coupling to push continuously in a circle. Now they're all oriented exactly the same polarity, because if they were opposite, they would snap together and lock together. You want it the opposite, so they're going to continually push away from each other at all the times. Now the varying degrees of tilt on the magnets is fascinating too, because sacred numerology puts 36 as a number that we see throughout history. Now magnets orient them at 36 degrees. Again, there's a lot of encoding of different knowledge throughout history, you know, and the religions as well. So here's the diagrams if you would like to build one of these. You're going to need some sort of substrate. You can use aluminum, you can use cast plastics, you're going to need a CNC lathe, and you're going to have to go at this. You're going to need some sort of metallic housing for it so it doesn't spin. This thing rolls. It's kind of noisy too. You need a housing box for it. Just saying. But when it starts to spin, you're going to be going in well excess of 12 to 1700 RPMs. If this thing flies apart at any point in your journey of discovery of how to build one of these things, you would definitely want to stand behind something or put some sort of shielding up when you first run with it to make sure that your whatever poured substrate is going to be hard enough to take that cavitation. You can use aluminum housing too, which is much safer and it's non-magnetic. Now you notice the diagram on the left is very simple, and you just one inside circle has all the magnets. You could choose north or south, doesn't matter, but they need to all be oriented so the magnetic polarity is facing each other. So it does continue to push away each time it makes and breaks that contact on the block wall. And as we're wrapping up here, here's the Parandev magnetic motor patents. There's several of them, so you can start here. You can go to the U.S. Patent Office, and once you start typing these numbers in and looking for different patents across Europe and the United States, you will come into what you seek. But I just can't believe that this world that we're in right now, we have the exact same overlays of those destroyed or drowned in water, lost at sea, that wanted to make a betterment for the world. You see the world where we are now. I mean, how much change can we make? It's going to be at your very local level first. But I would warn you from experience. If you build these motors, you're going to have eyes. You're going to need to be extremely cautious. You're not going to go blasting this out to your neighborhood and telling everybody that you have it. You can use it for your home use, and that's where it needs to stay for emergencies. If you try to commercialize it, you and your family will have a very difficult time. You'll end up like those people down there in what? The Ocean Gate submarine, which is a sad fact. Hope their families wish them the best as these days progress. But anyway, knowledge is your armor. Bye for now.